Hello, it is I, Andrine, your Jewish American Priestess, and I'm bringing you a Hebrunes reading today, timeless reading. And the theme we're working with today is, what's a message coming to you from your ancestors right now? And the way I'm going to do this reading today is I'm going to pull out 3 cards from the Sovereign Oracle deck, and with those 3 Nordic runes, and then we'll do a Hebrune reading on the topics that come up on those cards and those runes, and that will be your message today from your ancestors who are wanting to speak to you right now at this time of year, whenever you're finding it. So let's start out with an oracle card. We're going to do 3 of them, and I'll put the timestamps down below so it'll be easy for you to find your reading quickly. There's number 1. There's number 2. Oh boy. There's number 3. Okay. Let's take a look and see what each of the cards say. Card number 1, we have co-creation. For card number 2, we have reflection. And for card number 3, we have integrity. And as I said, we're going to pull out a Nordic rune for each of these as well. Make some space there. The first one gets Raidho, which is the rune of riding or movement forward. Number 2 is Uruz, which is strength. And rune number 3 is Eihwaz, which is endurance. Okay, we'll go into each of these a little further in the reading as well. But as for now, go ahead and check your timestamp below. Choose co-creation, reflection, or integrity, or if more than one of these speaks to you, choose as many as you need. And then we'll go into our Hebrune reading there. See you in your reading. Hello, card number 1, folks who chose co-creation and the rune of Raidho. Our card says, let go of competition, relax ideas of perfection, embrace play and playmates and mates, and let the expression of your gifts create opportunities for others. Co-creation. So that's the first message that's coming to you from your ancestors, and with that we have the rune of Raidho. And Raidho is the letter that means ride or journey, moving forward. It's about getting on your vehicle and moving forward. So it's about progress, riding, doing things in the right order, in the right way, proceeding, and rationality and growth. So all of those aspects are present in this message from your ancestors here today. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we have a little clearer picture. All right, so the first message I'm getting here from the ancestors is, it's time to progress, it's time to move forward, and it's time to do so with others, not to be afraid of collaborating. There's a deep message in that. It's very easy to want to go it alone, especially when we're riding forth. But the message seems to be to stop competing. Really embrace that idea of playing with others and playing well with others. We're also going to pull out 3 Hebrunes today from this set of myrtle wood and read what comes up here as well. The first one is the Kuf. Secondly, we have the Yud. And in the third position, we have the Dalet. Okay. So, how I generally read a 3 Hebrune spread is the top Hebrune has to do with what is our current situation, the center is what is the challenge, and the final is what is the outcome given our current circumstances. And with this reading, as this message from our ancestors, what I'm seeing is we're being called forward with sacredness. There's something sacred to our position right now. We have been working possibly alone at this point up until now, that we have this calling, this sacred calling that is drawing us forward. And as we have that, we have to determine how are we designating ourselves toward service for the better good of all. Finding our way to bring about wholeness. I'm going to say wholeness. The letter Kuf is the number 100 in Gematria. So it has this connotation of 10 times 10. 10 being this ultimate manifestation of a thing. Oftentimes in the tarot, you'll see the 10s are completion cards. It speaks to the ending of a thing. And in the Hebrunes, I think of it as an explosion of something greater coming from it. And 10 times 10 is this ultimate manifestation of the idea of holiness or sacredness. Something ultimately sacred is coming in. That we are working with the materials we have to create that which needs to be created right now. I see the Kuf as corresponding to the Magician card in traditional tarot. When I sat with each of these letters as they correspond to the tarot cards, Kuf being that sacredness, that holy action, and the Magician being one who has resourcefulness and the will and intention to move forward. So as we're creating, we have had this period of time where we have found our sacred calling, that we're moving forward toward creating what it is we need to create, but we've been doing it possibly alone. The Kuf corresponds to the tribe of Naphtali in the tribes of Israel, and Naphtali translates my struggle. So there's been some kind of struggle going on as well, perhaps, that we've got the tools we need to move forward, but now it's time to work with others to create. Our central letter, that which is either a challenge or a fear right now in our situation, is the letter Yud. And the letter Yud is the number 10. So Kuf being 10 times 10, we're struggling with one aspect of the 10 here. The 10, which is that smallest letter, the Yud, that one point, that spark or that seed. So perhaps we're being challenged with planting a seed right now. We've got this calling toward sacredness. But we need to start. We need to plant that seed. We need to start the building blocks of our situation. It's also the foundation of sexuality. And so I see it sometimes as like a sperm, like that little piece that is put in motion that then creates a whole thing. So maybe there's something to do with sexuality here. I mean, co-creation, if you go literally with it, it's about creating another person with another person. So you need 2 humans in order to create another human. And we have this spark and this seed and this foundation of sexuality here, which is the struggle. Have we found the right person? Maybe, maybe not. Have we started a creation with somebody that hasn't worked out well? Yeah, there's fear around that. That makes sense. But our ancestors are calling to us right now. That sacred calling is coming. And we are being challenged with co-creation. We need to create with others, it says right here. It's time to move forward and create with others. So what I'm seeing as the challenge here, the fear, is that perhaps we're not ready to start. We're not feeling like we're ready to start. That the number 10 is the number that talks about completion, but it's also a manifestation in and of itself. I mean, so it's the ultimate manifestation of the number 1. And as I've said, we've been doing this alone. We've been solo here, and now we're being asked to co-create. And that can be with the divine. The letter Yud is the first letter of the divine name. So co-creation with divinity is not just 1 + 1 = 2, but 1 × 10 = 10. So, and 10 × 10 = 100. So we've got this, this idea of really co-creating with, not just with another human being perhaps, but with the larger creator, the creator of all. And that's challenging. That's a hard ask, but it's an important one. It does speak to creativity and artisanship, handiwork. The letter Yud begins the word Yad, which means hand. So it's about creation with one's hand, with making things in the world, making art, making substantial stuff. And I see Yud as representing the tarot card, the Fool. So we have the Magician and the Fool. It's interesting, the Fool is 0 usually, and the Magician is 1 usually in the tarot, but in my reading of it, the Magician is 100 and the Fool is 10. So we have this one seed that's being planted, this openness, this beginning that is the challenge here. And that brings us to the manifestation of having the tools we need to create. So as we're working with those tools that we need to create, we need to step back into that beginning place and really trust that co-creation will occur, that we're being called to co-creation with the divine by our ancestors, is what the message is here. And if we do that, our final outcome letter is the letter Dalet. And the letter Dalet is a doorway. It is going through a transition, going through a liminal space in order to come out onto the other side. And I think that's amazing with this reading, because we have this call to sacred work. We have this challenge with just starting. But if we do, we'll come out through a doorway where we have the ability to do what we need to do here. The letter Dalet is the number 4 in Gematria, so it speaks to the 4 letters of the divine name, the Yud He Vav He. And so we have this potential for completion of the creation, that we have the ability to cross over that threshold to the other side. As I'm speaking about how I correspond the Hebrunes to the tarot cards, I see Dalet as corresponding to the death card. And that can be frightening for some folks, but death is about transition. It's about a portal to the other side. So we have the possibility for portals. We have the possibility to step through a gateway into something new and beautiful. And letting go of competition, relaxing our ideas of perfection, and letting the expression of our gifts create opportunities for others will bring us through to another place. And also bring us forward, as we have the rune Raidho here. We're talking about moving forward into something new, something progressive, something moving us in the right direction. So as we work on our co-creation, as we move forward with the co-creation, know that we are being called towards something that is sacred. That even though it's a challenge to start out and plant that seed, even though it may be challenging to imagine how we're going to co-create with divinity, when we do, we'll come through with the Dalit, through that doorway to the right place to be next, whatever that looks like. And we can't maybe know what that is right now, but we have that potential for us, waiting for us on the other side. I'm just deciding on the spur of the moment to pull out one more Nordic rune to give us one more piece of clarity on this. And we have the blank. Beautiful. Okay, so that's the Nordic rune called Weird, which is about fate and destiny. It's about endless possibility, the unknown, the unknown. And so I just think this is gorgeous. But we have this idea of our ancestors calling us to co-creation, to move forward, to journey forward on our path. That we've been called into a time of sacredness. That although we may have a challenge or a fear about beginning, that we will come through that doorway. And when we do, we'll have boundlessness and endless possibility. That we'll have found our destiny in this. So for those of you who chose co-creation today and the rune Raidho, this has been your Hebrune reading. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. And also, if you're interested in knowing more about the Hebrunes, please check out my link in the description box below. And I hopefully see you here next time. Hello, card number 2. The card that you chose today says Reflection. Let's read it. It says, take time for deep thoughts. Notice the ripples you create. Softly mirror your truth to the world as you discover it. Reflection. Okay. And then our Nordic rune coming up is the letter Uruz. And Uruz is the wild ox, sometimes seen as the bison or some other kind of aurochs. It is about strength. It's about brute strength in the world, finding your way forward, vitality, good health, power, and healing. So coming from our ancestors, that's a wonderful image that we have the strength inside of us, that we should tap into that strength, and that we should reflect on how what we do creates ripples in the world. So let's see what else comes up today from our ancestors with regards to reflection and the Aurochs, the wild ox, Uruz. First letter coming out, it's Sadi. And that tone you just heard is a random chime I have on my phone, which always reminds me that the divine is here with us. The central letter we have is Shin. And our third letter is Samech. All right. So what's coming to us from our ancestors is, the way I read these is the top Hebrune is about what is happening right now in our situation. The central is perhaps our challenge or fears around this, and the lower letter is that which is the outcome of our situation given the current circumstances. So we're starting out with Tzadi. Tzadi is the letter that begins the word Tzedek. It begins the word Tzedek and Tzadik, which means righteousness or justice. So something is going on right now as we're moving forward with strength from our ancestors toward justice. That we're trying to find justice perhaps in our situation, using our strength to push for justice in the world. Maybe we're fighting for justice, some kind of just cause that is coming. Or maybe we're trying to become a tzaddik, someone who's righteous in their actions and behaviors. And interestingly, tzadi also is the letter that begins the word tzayid, which means hunting. So it's funny with regards to the Uruz here that we have it right next to it, that maybe we're hunting for strength. Maybe we're using our strength to hunt for something. I think about, wild oxes or bison as something that ancestors hunted actually for nourishment and for warmth. So maybe it's time to be hunting for something in your life and calling upon the divine to cover us as we do, as we hunt forward, as we hunt for our power, as we hunt with power for the right thing. It says that we should take time for deep thoughts here, and that's something that absolutely comes up for somebody who's a tzaddik. Tzaddikim are also known as saints in other traditions, so maybe it's time to meditate a little bit, to sit with our strength and reflect and find time for those deep thoughts. And also notice our ripples in the world. So as we move forward with power, how is that rippling out into the rest of the world? The letter Tzadi is known as the foundation of thought. In the book, the Sefer Yetzirah, which is the book of creation, each of the letters is linked to a different foundation or transformation. Tzadi is connected to the foundation of thought, which, when it says take time for deep thoughts, seems incredibly appropriate for this reading, that we are supposed to take time in thought. The letter Tzadi is also the letter that is corresponding to the tribe of Asher. Asher, which means happiness or happy, but also has a reflection, when I think about reflection, of the goddess Asherah, who is venerated through the trees. So maybe it's time to spend some time in nature and softly mirror our truth as we discover it. If we go out into the world and see a tree, maybe we can sit with that tree and spend some time in reflection, really commune with nature in order to find the strength that we need and to find that inner tzaddik, that righteousness that is inherent in every person. Tzadi is the number 90 in Gematria, and the number 90 speaks to an ultimate manifestation of the number 9. The number 9, which is the letter Tet, is the letter that begins the word Tov, meaning goodness. And so we have this ultimate manifestation of goodness, and Tet is also the letter that is the number 9, meaning the 9 months of gestation. So some ultimate manifestation of gestation and goodness within. And so as we reflect on that, what is it we're gestating right now that is good, and how can we bring it into fruition? I think all of those things are up here with regards to what our ancestors are trying to tell us, is to take that time for reflection and thought, take the time to hunt for what it is we need to hunt for both sustenance and comfort and strength. And in the center of our reading, we have the letter Shin. And the letter Shin is in the position of what is a challenge or a fear right now. It's the mother letter of fire. And fire is this complicated element in that it is beautiful and it brings us heat and warmth, but it's also dangerous. So with Shin, we have this mother letter of fire. It speaks to the spirit inside of us, and also the presence of the divine, the Shekhinah. And those things can be powerful. They're powerful, and they can also cause some kind of heat, or the fire within can be a little bit intense. It can be anger or passion that maybe sometimes runs amok. We're talking about the Uruz here, that wildness, the wild beast that exists in all of us. And the Shin speaks to that passion, that fire in our heads, possibly in our hearts, about change, shini in Hebrew, or wholeness, shalom, and transformation through fire. Things get burned up and then they become something else. So there's power here in the fire, but there's also fear and concern about what's going to happen. And maybe it's time to reflect before we jump into the fire. That seems to be the message I'm getting. There's power here for sure in fire, but Uruz I always think of as moving more predictably, although powerfully. Predictable but powerful. Fire is unpredictable. It's a little bit frightening. So maybe we're afraid to move forward because there may be some kind of passion or fire that comes with that power. And that's of concern for us. That makes sense. And the last letter in our reading is the letter Samech. And Samech is the letter that is a circle or a cycle. It's about things coming around and spiraling around and becoming like seasons and times. Again, it reminds me of the ripples. So you drop something in the water and it ripples out into a circle. And Samech is also the letter that speaks to boundaries. So having appropriate established boundaries around us. Again, the ripples we create maybe are those boundaries as they ripple out into the world. The Samech in the Paleo Hebrew is a thorn. In the Sefer Yetzirah, the Samech is the foundation of agitation. So something that has been irritating, but also establishes good boundaries. So possibly setting up boundaries that are made up of thorns, that we have to put a thorn hedge sometimes around us to protect ourselves. And like a rose would put up thorns in order to protect itself. It's this beautiful thing, but we want to make sure that nobody just comes and grabs and takes from us. So taking the time to imagine, where's our strength? How can we establish good boundaries around ourselves without getting lost in what other people want from us? The letter Samech is about being surrounded. It's about being surrounded with protection, being surrounded with love and comfort as well. And I like that with regards to the Shin, because you have this idea of fire, which can be both destructive and also protective and creative. And the Uruz, the ox as well, because if you have this wild ox, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous, very strong beast, but it can give us comfort if we utilize it appropriately. If we take the time to hunt it responsibly, it can provide us with warmth from its skin and shelter as well, and nourishment. Using the fire appropriately to roast it, and then we find ourselves in a place of comfort and being surrounded and whole. So what I'm seeing here is our ancestors are saying to us that it's important to spend time in thought, to really, really focus on what is it that we should be doing right now? How do the things that we do create ripples into the world? And take some time for reflection about that. That maybe hunting for our strength by sitting and being in contemplation is important right now. That there's some fear around fire. There's some fear around that creative and destructive element of fire, that there's heat and passion there, and there's some real big concerns around that. That maybe that's a challenge. Maybe we're feeling some heat. Maybe we're feeling pressure to move forward quickly. But we need to take the time to really sit with it and find our strength. And when we do, we'll find a cycle comes to a completion. We'll find that we need to set up appropriate boundaries in order to establish a safe place and remain surrounded with love and protection from our ancestors, from our own boundaries, from those coming in from beyond as well. That we can get some protection if we can sit in contemplation and reach for that strength that's there. I'm going to pull out one more Nordic rune today to go with this reading, just to give a little bit more clarity about what's coming up next. And the letter that's coming out is the letter Fehu. And Fehu is the first letter of the Elder Futhark. Fehu is all about wealth and worth. And cattle, it's interesting because we've got a wild ox here, but this is more about cattle. Fehu is about that which we tend in order to find success. So maybe it's about tending our own thoughts. Maybe it's about tending our own reflections, really sitting with it. And it speaks to success and wealth. So, because it is about wealth and worth, But it's not about going out and hunting for something wild. It's about tending something like a herd of cattle. What is it we tend in the world right now that needs to have tending? And how will that bring us abundance and wealth and increased income? It's like, yeah, it's about wealth and income and financial gain as well. So there's the ancient tending, which is to be a hunter-gatherer, go out into the world and hunt for something. But then there's this domestication piece of what is it we tend in our daily life that will bring us wealth as well. And I think that has to do with tending our deeper thoughts, about tending the fire perhaps that's within us, that passion, and also setting up boundaries, setting up an established homestead that has a good wall around it so that we're protected. So for those of you who chose reflection today, the message from your ancestors is about strength, about protection, about sitting with righteousness, watching that fire, tending that fire, and setting up good boundaries for yourself so that you come into some wealth and tend what needs to be tended. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you liked. Please like and subscribe if you do. If you're interested in learning more about the Hebrunes, please check out my link in the description box below, and we'll see you here next time. Hello. For those of you who chose card number 3, we have the card Integrity here. Let's read it together. Integrity. Showing consistency in your values and behaviors. A fall is inevitable, sometimes. Land softly. Seek your own integration. Integrity. Beautiful message from ancestors. And then in addition to that, we have the Nordic rune Eihwaz. And Eihwaz is the letter which means yew tree. That's Y-E-W, yew tree. And so it's about stability and endurance, patience and perseverance, endurance, personal power, strength, and initiation. It is the letter that is about, it's the world tree. So for anybody who knows anything about Nordic mythology, it's the tree on which Wotan was sacrificed. And so he was able to endure that and come through a changed person. So it's about maintaining yourself through a trial, and that's perfect with the letter with the card Integrity here today, because we have this idea of being consistent, seeking integration, and that even though we've fallen, we need to find a way to land softly. It's a beautiful message from the ancestors just to begin with. Maintain your own integrity. Endure what needs to be endured to come through the other side and have integration in the end. We're going to pull out 3 Hebrunes today to go with this. And the top letter is the letter which is what is our situation right now. We have the letter Pe. The central letter is that which is the challenge right now. We have the letter Mem. And the lower letter is the letter which is the outcome of our situation, given the current circumstances. And we have the letter Nun. Okay, so the letter Pe, starting at the top, is the letter, Pe means mouth. So it's about creation. It's about speaking that into existence which you would like to see in the world. It is said to be the mouth of the divine. You can see it looks a little bit like a mouth, speaking creation into existence. As we know in the Torah, the divine used words to create the universe. And in fact, for our purposes, the Sefer Yetzirah says these letters were carved as channels through which the divine could pour into the universe. So we have the letter Pe, and Pe is about a mouth. It's about communication. It's about speaking into creation what you'd like to see in the world. And it's a spiral. Where I said it looks like a spiral, spiraling infinitely in and infinitely out. It's the number 80 in Gematria. And that speaks to this ultimate manifestation of the infinite. We have the number 8, which looks like an infinity symbol on its side, and 10 times 8 is this ultimate manifestation of the infinite. So something wonderful right now in your current situation is speaking to this spiral of infinity. Something maintaining integrity, perhaps, as we speak into the world, what we'd like to see. It is this binary transformation of grace and ugliness. So where on that continuum do you lie with regards to wanting to create that which is beautiful without complaining about that which is ugly? Rather than focusing on that which you don't want to see in the world, really focus on that which you do want to see in the world. Creating your reality with your words and blessing rather than cursing. I see the pay as this concept of time and infinity, just that endlessness, that boundlessness, the labyrinth that we have to travel through to find our way. And again, maintaining our integrity as we travel through the labyrinth that is time, that is our world. I see the pay as corresponding to the traditional tarot card of the Hierophant. And the Hierophant is the one who is the mouthpiece of God, the one who speaks the words of divinity into the world for others to hear. So maintaining our integrity again as we are showing consistency in our values and behaviors rather than just giving things lip service. We actually have to do that which we are also saying. We have to practice what we preach, as it were, and maintain our integrity in the terms of that yew tree being stable, being consistent, and seeking our own integration. In the center of our reading, we have the letter Mem, which is the challenge or fear in our situation. And the letter Mem is the mother letter of water. And it speaks to the idea of creation, the creation element of water, which is, we all come from the sea on some great level. Before there were plants and animals on land, there was only life in the sea. And it's also that amniotic fluid from which we are all born out of a womb. It's that womb in the body, and it's the number 40 in Gematria, which speaks to the 40 weeks of gestation in the human body. So something about gestation, we're having some challenge or fear around what's being gestated right now, or emotions. Mem being the water letter is also about emotional feelings and such. Maybe we're having a lot of feelings right now, and we have to maintain our integrity as we're feeling those feelings. Mem can also be seen to represent cleansing. Of course, we use water to clean things. And in Hebrew, the word mikvah, which is a ritual bath that's about purification, starts with the letter Mem. So there's some kind of cleansing that's happening, perhaps, that we are going through after we've had a fall. Perhaps the fall is inevitable, it says. So perhaps there's been some kind of shakeup in our situation, and now it's time to get clean. It's time to come through, feel the feelings we need to feel, sit with that gestation and tap into the water of life, the Mayim Chaim, the water of life, and use that to also cleanse ourselves with that enduring rain. The number 40 speaks to the 40 days of rain in the story of Noah, but also the traveling of the 40 years in the wilderness as we exited Egypt and moved on toward the promised land. There was a 40-year journey that took place. And there's that 40 days on Sinai where Moses goes up to receive the Torah. And while he's up on that mountain, there's this sort of transformation that takes place, this cleansing and sanctification that takes place. And those things all happen in 40s in the Torah. And the same way a human comes into formation within the human body in 40 weeks. So the challenge here is the gestation. The challenge here is the cleansing. The challenge here is the emotions that we're enduring to get through the situation and on to the next thing. And the final letter in our reading is the letter Nun. And the letter Nun is the letter that speaks to humility. When we come to the end of it, we have this bowed figure on their knees with their head bent over. It's Ne'aman, which means humble. So there's something about humility, loyalty, and faithfulness. I love that with regards to integrity, endurance, really being faithful to yourself in this situation as we're speaking into existence what we'd like to see and waiting through that gestation period. We need to remain faithful. We need to remain faithful to ourselves, to whatever it is that we are being called for, that we have this loyalty and humility as we come through it, that we can't just walk through it the other side and say, oh, we did this all by ourselves. That we really have to give credit where credit is due, that we have to own our own values as we come through this and seek integration on the other side as we have endured the yew tree, as we have endured whatever it is that we are transitioning through and from to the other side of humility, of being appropriately humble, not humiliated, but humble. I see the Nun as corresponding to the Hermit card in Tarot. So someone who is has sat for a while with their thoughts and really contemplated their connection with the universe, and now they're holding a lantern to guide the way for others to follow as well. Really being present and knowing where you stand in the world with regards to integrity. So our message from the ancestors seems to be, have our integrity, show consistency in our values and behaviors, speak what we'd like to see in the world into being, but really sit with the infinite too. Really sit with that spiral. Really sit with the concept of where is our place in the universe, and endure that with our endurance in our Eihwaz yew tree. Maybe it's a trial that we need to just contemplate right now. And although there may be a challenge with that gestation period where we're waiting it out, maybe the feelings that we're feeling and or the cleansing that needs to come with that contemplation of the spiral, when we come through, we'll have humility and the ability to show others the way forward after all of this transition. I'm going to pull out one more rune from the Nordic Runes, just to give us one more piece of the puzzle here. And this is our letter. It's the letter Eihwaz. So we've got Eihwaz and Eihwaz. Those are a little confusing. They sound similar, but they're very different letters. Eihwaz is a horse. You can see it sort of looks a little bit like a horse, with a little bit of a slung back. But it's also not just about traveling. It's about either being the horse or being the rider. And which one are you here? I mean, in this case, the message I'm getting from the ancestors is we need to be the vehicle. Understand what it's like to be the horse. And there's that chime that tells us the divine is here, giving us this message. Eihwaz is the letter that is about spirit. It's about riding spirit forward. That horse, which is the spirit. And it's about balance and stability and trust and loyalty again, similar to the Nun, but it's about spirit journeys, riding forward with spirit, really finding your inner spirit guide. I heard it recently said, not your higher self, but your favorite self. Where is the spirit inside of you, and how can you ride that forward right now? How can you become that horse? So for those of you who chose the integrity card, again, your message is to be consistent. Have your loyalty and your endurance as we walk forward through this transition period, through this cleansing period of gestation, and seek integration in the end. When you come out the other side, remember to remain humble. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe to my channel. If you're interested in learning more about the Hebrunes, please check out the description box below, and hopefully I'll see you here next time.